on my screen.
I did. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Speed Mentoring with Bonnie and Vickie. My name is Vickie Sokol-Evans. I'm broadcasting from Austin, Texas.
And I am Bonnie Low-Kramen, and I'm coming to you from my home office in Ponte Vedra, Florida. I am so happy to welcome each and every one of you who are coming in from 44 countries. I am just blown away by that. We had over 2,000 people register for the call. You all are coming in right now. We're close to 1,000 people now. This is a very special week. It is Administrative Professionals Week here in the United States, and I am aware that other countries are celebrating it too. Many of you perhaps have celebrated it on other days. My wish for this week is that all of you have been acknowledged and validated and celebrated by your leaders and by your companies for the very important role that you play in your companies as the backbone of the company, the right arms to your executives, and the face of the company culture. You are still doing that despite this new normal that we're entering into, this virtual world that we're being thrown into. We are delighted that each and every one of you are here. We have a lot to cover today. We have a really exciting 90 minutes for you. But first, for those of you who may not be too familiar with Vickie and me, I am, as you know, I'm Bonnie Low-Kramen. And for 25 years, I worked as the personal assistant to Oscar-winning actress Olympia Dukakis. Many of you know her work from Moonstruck and Steel Magnolias and Mr. Holland's Opus. And from that experience, I wrote the book, Be the Ultimate Assistant. And it is from that book that was all driven from the knowledge that there was such a lack of resources for the enormous number of women and men who do this work as assistants. And so I started dreaming about a class. And when I was designing the class, I quickly came to the idea that there's no way you can be an ultimate assistant without having a significant technology piece. And that led me to Vickie Sokol-Evans. Vic and I have known each other for more than 10 years now. It feels like I can't imagine life without her, actually. But 5 minutes into our conversation that we were having at a restaurant in New York City, what struck me then is what is true right this minute, which is that any person who touches a computer needs to know what this lady knows. Vic is a former assistant herself. She used to work for Microsoft. She holds over 20 certifications in Office. And she has trained the team at Buckingham Palace. She trains the team at Bill Gates' office. So there's really nobody better to teach assistants. So all of us in the community are so fortunate to be learning from her. And for the last 9 years, we have been traveling the world teaching Be the Ultimate Assistant 2-day workshops. And many of our students are on the call right now, and we're so happy to have you and our colleagues. Vic, what do you have to say about that?
Well, I do want to thank you for those kind words. And I also want to add to that moment when we first met, and what I identified upon meeting you, and what I think all assistants would agree, those that have met you, is that you really have this authentic interest in knowing about each person you're talking to, especially assistants and where they are. And I don't know anyone that's talked to more assistants than you. So you're a beloved mentor of mine, and I'm so lucky that we met and that you're in my life. So that's one of the reasons why we're doing this today. I mean, the first thing that you said to me when this pandemic happened, is, oh my gosh, we've got to do some sort of mentoring session. We've got to help, and that you're the reason why we're here. So I just wanted to add that.
Thanks, Vic. Okay,
you're
moving
welcome.
on.
Thank you. I'm not advancing the slide right now.
So over the last few weeks, Vickie and I have been doing a lot of webinars separately and together, and we've been polling assistants from all over the world about what they're thinking and going through right now, because my gosh, this virus has been like a tsunami situation that has hit the global workplace. Honestly, I didn't think anything could top 9/11 when it came to disrupting the global workplace, but here comes this virus, and these words on the slide represent, and the larger words represent the more prominent responses that we've gotten about how assistants are feeling around the world, and what is coming up for the assistants of the world. You know, while I'm in Florida and Vickie's in Texas, we've been hearing from our students in Belgium and the UK, and you name it, 44 countries on this call, and last call was 32 countries, so you can imagine. And of course, I'm talking with assistants all over this country. The anxiety is high, and it's for good reason. The stress, the preoccupation, the feelings of insecurity. Perhaps you saw this morning the job report came in, and 26 million people have applied for unemployment in the last 5 weeks. So we have quite a situation here, and we're in the thick of it right now. So despite the fact that you are at home, perhaps alone, what Vickie and I so want you to know is that you are not alone. There are, oh my gosh, we're, as 1,000 people on the call right now, globally, we are so much stronger together. And that is one of the prime goals of this webinar, is to tackle the burning issues that are present right this minute. The questions that have come in include phrases like scared to death. And I just want to say some of these words on the screen, I certainly am concerned about as well. Because, as much as we know, there's a lot we don't know. But here's the thing. We are so much better collaborating together than isolated and siloed. So let's move on, Vic. So what is this thing called speed mentoring? Actually, it started several years ago when Vickie and I were at a conference, and we were going to go to dinner. And a few of the assistants around us were saying, oh, I want to go, I want to go, I want to go. And we found ourselves at a round table. Vic, I have a feeling you remember this, where we were at this table, and spontaneously one of the people at the table started sharing an issue that she had at the office. Do you remember this, Vic?
I do remember. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the rest of us just spontaneously started listening to it, and people were like, well, wait a minute, I had that happen to me, and this is how I handled it. And another person said, oh, but wait a minute, you better think about this before you say blah, blah, blah. And within 3 minutes, the person who had shared the issue, her attitude was like, oh my gosh, I totally know what to do now. So that's what we're doing here for 90 minutes. You have sent us a ton of questions. Vickie's going to go over that, but that's our intention. At the table, you see on the slide that I do this at every conference, at every chance I get, because what are there, 15 people at that table? What I know is we are so much stronger putting 15 heads are better than one, 1,000 heads are better than one. So that's what we're looking to do. And we've got a mammoth crisis in our faces right this minute. So we are going to try to address as many as we possibly can, truly. And that's what I came to Vickie and said. I said, we have to do this. We have to figure out a way to do this. And so this is our way. Thanks, Vic.
Yeah, I just want to point out, yeah, you bet. I just want to point out, there's Bonnie right there. Like, this is a real mentoring session happening.
Oh, yeah. But
yeah,
that I think
it
was an IAP conference. Mm-hmm. Okay. So tell us what's happening here.
So these sessions that we're doing are every other week. And so when you register for one, then the registration passes over to the next one. So I want to share with you how many questions we're receiving during the registration process. And we really appreciate you submitting your questions when you register, because that helps us look at the questions prior to the session so that we know what to plan for that day. So the last session we had with Nate Burkus and Kelly, his assistant, is 533 questions were submitted prior to the session. And then during that session, we received another 500 questions. So about 1,000 questions came in. For this, for this question, so 500 and 500. For this session, when you register, we had additional registrations. We had over 300 submitted. And then we have the amazing Colleen Dunn, my assistant on my team, who is managing the Q&A back here. So we encourage your questions. And for the next one that you register for, keep submitting those questions. So speaking of our amazing team, Colleen Dunn is my assistant. She's based in Columbus, Ohio. I'm in Austin, Texas. Jen Wilner is Bonnie's assistant. How many years, Bonnie? 7 years now?
7. Yeah. 7 going on 8.
Yeah, 7 years.
Hi, Jen. Yeah. She's listening in from Jersey.
Oh, good. Hi, Jen. And then Bonnie's partner, Robert, who's on the call as well. He is our tech support. And I remember one day there was a potential phishing scam that happened with Bonnie's account. And she was at a conference. It was Friday night at 5 p.m. And then all of a sudden, Jen, Robert, and we just went into action and we solved the problem. Well, sort of. We mitigated the problem. So I love having these 3 amazing people on our team. So thank you guys so much for all of your help.
We couldn't do this without you. We couldn't do without you.
Not at all. Not at all.
All right. So what spurred all of this on, of course, is this crisis that hit. It feels like 5 minutes ago, right? We've been living with this for over a month, but we have this virus that's affecting a lot of people in the world. As I said, there's a lot we don't know. So our job here on this webinar, in part, is to offer resources that will help you move forward in your companies, wherever in the world you are, because my goodness, this is touching every single country on the planet. So we're so grateful to the first responders, to the healthcare workers who are risking their lives so that we can stay at home. And, you know, what we're also aware of is that there are many assistants in the world who are also first responders, because I've spoken to many of you who've said that you are 1 or 2 people who are the ones still allowed into your buildings because you're so essential to the running of the organization. So through these next weeks and months, we have a lot of people to thank. We have to be always mindful of gratitude as we're moving through this. So I think this next slide has some resources for us, right, Vic? Mm-hmm. Yes. You know, assistants of the world you are the queens and kings of the facts. So the places to get verifiable facts about what the latest numbers are, you know, what the latest rules are, because they seem to be changing daily. Here are some great resources for you. We share these slides, but, you know, certainly take a picture of it if you want. But these websites offer up to the minute information about what you can do to stay safe in your homes, in your, you know, when you're out at the grocery store. I mean, there's some serious and significant anxiety about, you know, how do you stay safe at the supermarket and how do you stay safe at gas stations, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so we did some polling. Let's take a look and see how you answered, please. This is addressing some of the themes that have been coming up in all the questions.
So the first question we asked you during the registration. Yeah, go ahead, Bon. You want to
go ahead, Vic? No, go ahead. It's all yours.
Okay. we rehearsed this, obviously. I love data, so anytime I see data, my eyeballs, my pupils turn into a heart. So sorry about that. So why don't you do this, Bon, since these are your questions, and I'll do the tech questions.
Yeah, those of you who've been at conferences with me know that I love asking the question, you know, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the most, what's your stress level? And think it's important in this situation to ask that question and check it out. I mean, the numbers are steadily going up as the weeks go on, and we're not quite sure where this is going to end. And so the stress level is pretty high. I'm a big fan of psychology and therapy, and I joke that, you know, my students, anybody who hears me gets to benefit from my thousands of dollars of therapy. But it really is no joking matter. The stress level is high, and we know stress levels of 6 and above are dangerous. And that slide right there is going to lead to, you know, mental health concerns as we move through this. The main message here is to notice that people exhibit stress in different ways. Things that stress you out may not be stressing somebody else out. So I think we really just need to cut each other a serious break in this situation and give people the benefit of the doubt as we move forward in this, and to ask people how they're doing. You know, we're still all humans in the situation, so we have to be patient. Okay. So we asked if you have the virus. It's great news that almost 92% do not have it right now, but the chances are that you may get it. And on the next slide, we asked, do you know anybody who has it? And the numbers are going up about that, as it's hard to imagine that just like 9/11 touched all of us, really. I mean, at this point, everybody has a 9/11 story that either you know somebody or someone you know knew somebody. It's going to be the same with this. So we need to be ever mindful that the more time that goes by, that the people in our orbit probably have been touched by this. And we need to be sensitive to that. Thanks, Vic. Want to take this one, Vic?
Sure.
Oh, maybe not. Okay.
Yeah. I'll do that. So
Okay.
we have almost 80% of you as assistants. I love that there's 11% assistants who manage other people, and then we have 1%. So I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory who's on the call. So that's perfect. None of the above. No answer. Yeah. Good. Okay. All right. So we are ready for our special guest speaker. Is Ann Hiatt, who is the former chief of staff and executive business partner to Jeff Bezos. Ann received her initial business training during 15 years as the executive business partner to Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon, as you probably all know, and the chief of staff to Eric Schmidt, CEO and chairman of Google and Alphabet. And we're so happy to have Ann on the call because she is a colleague of ours. So this is Ann right here. This is Bonnie. This is me several years ago. And not only are we colleagues, but Ann is also a really good friend of mine. I had the honor of not only attending her wedding, but also speaking at her wedding. And I was so thankful that when I went through my cancer battle, let me get emotional. Yeah, she was there. So yeah, that's her. And then here's, I have to go to something funny before I get emotional.
I'm holding your hand, Vic. I'm holding your virtual hand.
Wait. Thank you. I appreciate that. Woo, I get emotional when I see these slides. And then here's Bonnie and then her partner, Robert, and remind us at some point to tell you the story of why we're dressed up kind of Bruno Mars themed. But I want to talk about the day I met Ann. She was presenting at a conference that Bonnie and I were both presenting at. And I remember just sitting in the audience listening to her talk, and her talk was all about the lessons that she learned having worked with 3 technology giants, Jeff Bezos, Eric Schmidt, and then Marissa Mayer of Yahoo. And I remember sitting on the edge of my seat thinking everything that she's talking about right now is something that not only the room full of assistants need to know, is everyone in a business capacity needs to know what she's learned, having had a front row seat, a backstage pass to innovation at Amazon and at Google and at Yahoo. So I am so happy to introduce our friend Ann Hiatt to the call, who'll be speaking today with us. And here she is. Yay, Ann.
Welcome, Ann. We're so happy you're here.
So many memories in those slides. We've been through a lot.
Absolutely.
And we have a lot more to make.
That's right.
And Vickie, can I just say, time out 1 second, is that the great news is that you are healthy and strong, and we are past those pictures. I think that's important to say. And we're so grateful. The world needs you. All right, I'm getting off right now.
Thanks. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to turn it over to you, Ann, because you have some prepared remarks. And then once Ann has completed her prepared remarks, we're going to take some questions. So while she's talking, go ahead and submit questions for Ann. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my webcam and mute. And Ann, take it away.
Am I going to present the whole time looking at those gorgeous photos of my team?
If you want to talk about your team now, talk about them.
Okay,
and then what I'll do is I'll hide the pictures. Yeah.
Well, I'm feeling homesick because my gorgeous husband, who's in that bottom left photo, I haven't seen him in 6 weeks and 2 days, and he is watching this right now. So hello, I miss you. I am actually coming to you from, yep, that's him. I am coming to you from Seattle, Washington, from the house I grew up in when I was young. I am stranded in the US. I came here to speak at South by Southwest, which was then canceled, and I'm now here in my parents' house waiting until they open the airports back in Spain. So it's a crazy time for all of us, for sure. And I am with you in this struggle of reinventing ourselves and really striving to create a new normal. And I just really want to start my talk off by saying that this is a global pandemic and not a productivity contest, okay? It is all right if you're not okay. It's okay if you're not your normal productive self. It's okay if you struggle to get through the day, if you're not able to yet get into a good routine, or if you get into a routine and fall out of it, I'm with you. I'm having the exact same experience. The first 2 weeks I was in the States when all of this was unfolding, and it became a very serious health crisis in Spain, and all my loved ones were there, and I wasn't together with them. Now it's a little emotional for me too. It was hard. And so I had a couple of weeks where I was not productive. I could not do my best work. I could not focus on my deliverables for my clients or my family. And it felt really disorienting because I'm a person who, I think of myself as someone who does well in times of crisis. And so it shakes kind of your foundation a little bit. So it's all right if you, like me, are still a little bit in struggle mode. But what I really want for you today is to give yourself permission to mourn some of those losses, mourn the loss of your former normal, and to be okay with the grieving process around that. We have to go through all the stages, including like denial and anger, and hopefully then we get to a period of acceptance where we can take some control. So the talk I've prepared for you today is mostly about that, about setting realistic expectations for ourselves and setting good goals and giving ourselves a sense of control back. Because for me, that's what's most comforting when the world feels so unpredictable and the standards are so ambiguous and we do not yet have a finish line in sight. We don't know how long the world will be on hold like this. We really need to be realistic with how to pace ourselves. So my talk was titled in the 3 stages of survive, revive, and thrive. Most of my talk today is going to be in the survival stage because that's where we're at right now. But I do have a message of ways that we can regain some control and get back to maximizing our output and really feeling like we're our old selves again. I was just watching something online. I needed something inspirational, and a friend recommended a video of a commencement address given by a former Navy SEAL. And this Navy SEAL, in his entire commencement address, was about why in the military, they emphasize making your bed so much. And at first I thought, where is he going with this? But the reason that they start with that, I'm a military brat myself. My father was a fighter pilot in the Air Force. I was born on MacDill Air Force Base in Florida. And so I grew up in that environment, and they do take bed making very seriously. But he used that as an example for setting big goals for yourself, because if you can just control one thing, maybe today it's only the ability to make your bed. Because if you are struggling with lots of kids at home and trying to do your job remotely for the first time and working for a manager who's never led from afar or leading a team remotely, which you've never done before, it can feel very overwhelming. So I found it really helpful to choose one goal. So I just wanted to share that in the beginning before I get started. So hopefully today you don't feel a sense of overwhelm with what I'm about to share, the many tips and stories that I'm going to share with you, but maybe just look for that one nugget. What's your version of making the bed today? The one thing that you're going to hold on to that you feel like you can do successfully today. Now, I'm going to share a lot of principles and some stories to outline what I'm trying to illustrate, but don't worry about taking furious notes. I have created a 15-page worksheet guide for you that's on my website. We'll show it at the end of the talk, so you don't have to remember it, but my website is annhiatt.co. So that's ANNHIATT.co. And I've got that 15-page guide that you can download, and it's got actionable steps that you can take today to implement some of the principles that I'm about to deliver. Okay? All right, so bite-sized pieces, everybody. So the first stage is survive, which is where we are right now. When we're in survival mode, we don't yet know the finish line, and so it's really hard to pace ourselves. In one of my previous talks on a different theme, I was sharing an example of going to spin class. And I have this spin class that I go to in Spain with my husband regularly, and a favorite instructor. I really, really like her, and she gets the most out of me. Now, having worked at Amazon and Google for the last 15 years, I'm very data-driven, so I like to wear a heart rate monitor when I work out. And I noticed in her classes, I had an average number of calories that I would burn in her class. But then there was a week when she was on vacation visiting her family in England, and we had a substitute teacher. And when he was teaching, he wouldn't give us the same benchmarks that she did. When she would teach, she would say, okay, we're going to sprint for 45 seconds, but then you have a 15-second recovery. Or we're going to do a really heavy hill climb for the next 3 minutes, but then you get a full minute of recovery. So I knew how to pace myself, and I gave it my all because I knew a break was coming. And then with this substitute, he would just go, and I noticed my calorie burn was so much lower because I was conserving my energy, because I didn't know when that sprint or hill climb was going to stop. And I think that's how we feel a little bit right now. It's hard for us to know how to conserve our energy and use our resources the most wisely because we don't see that light at the end of the tunnel yet. So that's okay. So the first step in this survival zone that we're in right now is I want you to get some clarity. I need you to, within yourself, if you're managing your own company or your own work, within your tasks, set one thing that you need to do today. And then I want you to have a conversation with your stakeholders. Now, if you're the owner of a company, that's your investors or your board members. If you're on a team, go to your manager. And if you're managing people, go to your direct reports and have this conversation where I want you to really hone in on the one deliverable you need to focus on right now to stay alive, to keep the company rolling, to keep your clients happy, for your personal job security, and focus on that one thing. It is not realistic when we don't have a finish line to continue trying to accomplish your former job descriptions. It's just not sustainable. So if your manager hasn't yet figured that out, I would have a very realistic conversation with her or him about what you need to be delivering and what success looks like in this new environment. And the truth is you're really going to have to manage up. Your managers, your stakeholders probably have never been in this situation either and might not know what they're doing. So that conversation can be really collaborative. And I want you most of all in that conversation to come to a definition of success. This is going to be very different from what your performance reviews have looked like in years past. And success now might be just your business version of making your bed today. Okay, so really talk about what are your new deliverables? What do you need to deliver today, this week, and this month? I probably wouldn't look farther out from that because, as you know, every day is dramatically different than the last. But I would have a heart-to-heart conversation about that, what that looks like. And hopefully they're having that with your clients as well, the people who are paying your bottom line. And the third ingredient of that conversation, I think, is to do it with radical candor. A radical candor is a phrase that Ray Dalio uses in his book, Principles, about how he's created one of the most successful investment firms in the world. And for him, radical candor is when everyone is communicating their most honest selves. When someone asks you the question, how are you doing today? You give them the real answer. that you're struggling, that it's difficult, that you don't feel as productive today as you did yesterday. And when you do that, you give other people permission to be honest with you as well, including your managers, who might not feel comfortable sharing that they're struggling or that they're making this up as they go, that they don't really know how to manage effectively and are looking for some honest feedback from you about what's helping you and what makes you feel like an included team member and what more you might need to perform better as a whole. So I really want you to get a sense of those deliverables. And the key for me in managing up, which basically has been my job description in working for Jeff Bezos, Marissa Mayer, and Eric Schmidt, is really speaking truth to them. You are often the eyes and ears on their behalf of the company, and they need you to fill that role now more than ever. So really be ambitious in doing a lot of reaching out, not only managing up and to your direct reports, but across the company to have a sense of how your peers are doing, how the new procedures they're putting into place are being implemented, if they're effective in improving things, or if they're having unintended consequences. I really want you to clarify the deliverables and the results of things that you're trying, because this is going to be a cycling process. We're going to be pivoting a lot. The second principle in survival mode is being adaptable. This might be a scary part for some of you because this really requires you to look at yourself and your role and your contributions in a new way. There's things that have been your most valuable asset in the past when you're face-to-face that no longer apply in a remote environment. And that means you're going to have to maximize other skills that perhaps are a little bit dormant, or maybe you've never challenged yourself to develop before. So look and see what pieces are missing. Is it a communication system that needs to be put into place so that people feel like they have regular understanding of these pivot points? Is it your ability to manage up that needs to be sharpened? Or perhaps you're recognizing some tools that you don't yet have that you need to develop some expertise in around technology or pivoting to a different way of delivering things for your clients so that you can meet your bottom line. So I want you to, going back to the first analogy of having one thing you're doing today, I have found it really helpful in the days where when I'm overwhelmed, if I start my morning already knowing what my big rock is. And my rock is that usual analogy. If you have a jar that you need to fill and you have all these rocks and stones and pebbles and sand, you put the big rocks in first, and then the other pieces fit. If you start with the sand, which is the easier, tempting things to start with, because they're easier to deliver and not so heavy to pick up, if you start with that, you'll never get your big things in, and that will go back to not delivering what you've clarified as your biggest deliverable now. So I found it really helpful. If I start the morning not knowing where to begin, I can't begin. I just, that whole day is kind of lost to me. So I've started having the habit of at night, before I go to bed, I write down my one big deliverable for tomorrow. What if I only accomplish one thing, what would make me feel successful? And so then when I wake up and I get into my routine, I know exactly the task ahead of me and I can get started much easier. It's helped me get a little bit of momentum back when it's a real struggle, when I don't even want to shower or put on real clothes. If I've already done that mental homework for myself, I have a much better chance at being productive in the day. And the third and final piece of this survival stage for me is about resilience. Now, I encourage all of you to go and Google immediately Adam Grant resilience. Adam Grant is a professor at Wharton University who studies behavioral psychology and the future of work. I love everything he's ever written. It's genius. But what's helped me the most in this crisis right now is listening to some of his research and work around resilience, because they found through research that this is a skill that can be attained. It's not just one that you're born with. So if right now you feel like you're struggling and you need to get out of survival mode and become more productive, resilience is the key you really want to focus on. And he can explain the steps much better than I can. But just to touch on it on just the surface, resilience really starts with setting attainable goals for yourself, being realistic about what you need to deliver for your self-satisfaction in your family, what you need to do to be successful and keep your head above water in your current role, and an eye to the future, because things are changing and our roles might change, our jobs might change, we might have to change companies. Perhaps you've been furloughed or laid off and you really need to repackage your skills in a new way. Resilience is a key part to having that core strength to do it. Now, I want to tell you all a story that I think might be somewhat comforting to you, here in Seattle, I have a sister who has 2 sets of twins under the age of 5 who are now at home with her full time while she works full time in a very demanding technology job. And whenever I have a sense of overwhelm and think I can't really get it together today, I think of my poor sister with her 2 sets of twins under the age of 5, and I realize I have it pretty good. So I think it's helpful to set a humorous perspective and realize that for resilience, it's going to look different for everyone. My sister is doing the Olympics of resiliency, and I'm just trying to doggy paddle and do my very best in my small world. But if you have little ones at home, that's really where your resilience is going to come for. Keeping them fed and keeping them alive is success. That's going to be your benchmark. But once we have that set, then we can start focusing on what's beyond that. And the second is really setting a sustainable pace. While we don't know where the finish line is, you're really going to have to be realistic about what you can deliver each day. And talk with your life partner about that. Talk with your manager about that. One of my favorite things about being in this mobile world, this remote working thing, is getting to know each other's families really well. All the kids are making appearances on the video conferences, the pets, the partners, our neighbors. We're getting to know each other's intimate personal spaces. You're seeing each other's living rooms every day. And I think humanizing is an important part of setting that pace. This is my 3rd major economic crisis of my career. I started out working for Jeff Bezos at Amazon just after the original dot-com bust. And it was here in Seattle. And I remember he had been Time Man of the Year in 1999. Like, he was the golden boy of this new age of the dawn of the internet. And he then, by the time I started working for him in 2002, we had the dot-com crash of 2001. No one in my graduating class at university had any jobs coming out of class. It was a very bleak economic situation. And when I came into Amazon, the board of directors was rightfully really anxious about how they were going to get a return on their investment. And they were even considering bringing in a professional CEO, taking over from Jeff, because they weren't sure about his very unconventional business model. And when there he is, oh, Jeff. This is literally my desk at Amazon. They're just behind us. And Jeff's is within arm reach to the right. He was within 3 feet of me 18 hours a day, every day for 3 years. And in that environment, I watched him fight for his life. He fought every day to prove his business model to his board of directors. We were literally saving his job. And I was grateful to be part of that journey because I saw what it's like to reinvent yourself and to pivot in a very, very real way. When people don't believe in your vision or your skills or the way that you are going to solve a crisis, Jeff showed me a model for having that resilience. I actually have another webinar coming up next week, which goes through step by step how to do a thinking retreat, which is what I learned from Jeff about how to refocus your thinking. So we'll share the details for that. That goes into details of exactly how Jeff saved his job. But being there in that environment was really, I learned so much. That was better than business school, honestly, surviving that kind of crisis. I saw it the second time when I was working for Eric Schmidt at Google in 2008 during that economic crisis, and the way in which we had a responsibility to our shareholders. All of our stock values were underwater. There's Jeff and I at the London Olympics. It was a life goal of mine. I'm a huge Olympics junkie. And Eric and I went to the Olympics to negotiate YouTube broadcasting rights with the International Olympic Committee. And that's the kind of scale of projects we were working on together, where we were trying to do things that no one had ever done before. And I knew it wasn't possible without the right team in front of me. Thank you for anticipating that, Vickie. This is my team. So me and Eric in the photo there on the right, and then my teammates, Kim and Brian. Without that team, I could not have been resilient because it was really important to focus on the best talents of each of these individuals. Each of those people brought a different perspective and understanding, a different skill set and history and individual experiences that made us unique. And without the sum of those wholes, without the combinations of each of those pieces, we couldn't have survived that 2008 economic crisis in the way that we did. And now this is the third. I never expected a global pandemic, but here we are. And I'm really glad to have those resources, those experiences to remember and reflect on to coach me now. I left Google a year and a half ago, and I've started my own consulting firm. And I now coach this kind of resiliency to my CEO clients. I have spent the last month every morning on a crisis call with these CEOs. And I will tell you from daily experience that they're afraid. They're not sure what to do, and they really, really care about doing right by their clients, their investors, their employees, and they're struggling. They're pivoting, they're doing their best, they're really trying to lead from a distance, but it's challenging, and they need their team more than ever to help them be resilient and to really address the needs of their company the most. So what I hope that you take from this resilience step is that once you have this firm foundation, you can then pass that on to others. You can give that beautiful gift to your teammates and to inspire them by sharing best practices. What's helped you? What tools you've discovered to help you be more efficient? What's the best way to get your toddler to take a nap at the right time so that you can join your conference call uninterrupted? All of these things are welcome. And if you remember only one phrase from my talk today, I hope it's this. I hope you remember my challenge to go out there and do random acts of leadership every day. You may or may not see your role as leaders, but I certainly do. I know the possible impact you have on your companies and how you are the heart and soul and driving force behind it. And I want to challenge you to do a random act of leadership, whether that's reaching out to a team who you haven't heard from in a while to see how the policies implemented by your manager or executive are affecting their workflow, or managing up. Do a random act of leadership to someone senior to you to see how are they doing and ways in which you can be helpful. And for me, I think the greatest level of random acts of leadership is an opportunity where you come to them with a proactive solution rather than being reactive and putting the whole burden on them to tell you what to do and what they need. Observe, spend time thinking and reflecting, and make proactive suggestions and share your observations with them. Say, I know we made this decision and we intended these consequences. Here's what I'm seeing. Here's the good things that are working really well that we should lean into. Here's areas where I think there's room for improvement. And here's some suggestions of things you might want to think about. Now, in these pivot moments, you might not have that kind of relationship with your manager. He or she might not be used to bouncing ideas or using you in that thought process. And so you're going to have to teach them a new way of treating you and seeing your expertise. When I first started doing this with Marissa Meyer, I remember it being met with some awkward silence. I remember critiquing a briefing doc that she had been given in preparation for a political meeting, and I had some critiques and some suggestions of alternative talking points, and she looked at me like, okay. And then she went into her meeting and she came out and she was like, I used all of your talking points. And it just reframes the way that they think of you, they treat you, and they partner with you. So don't be afraid, especially now, to share those. This is actually your golden opportunity to do things that are outside of your traditional job description. Do something cross-functional. It's a great advantage we have in this purview of our executive roles, is seeing the way in which it is implemented in different ways across the company. And that's a perspective that your manager needs to be really effective and something that you can really offer uniquely. So I want you to then, when you have a moment, if you're ready, think about reviving. So this might come one day in a week, or hopefully it will become now, we'll get a sense of new normal. You might not be there yet, but when you have an eye to the future where you feel like, I've got a little footing under me, I've got some routines that are working, my family's okay, let's get into revive mode. So for me, this is cyclical. I have vacillated regularly between surviving and reviving. One week I'm really good. I'm working on my book. I'm on book deadline for my first book with HarperCollins, Leadership, which I'm very excited on. And I had a whole week where I wrote like almost half of it. I was just in a really great creative zone. My clients were doing okay. And that then all fell apart and I wasn't even productive at all. So it's okay if you cycle between these and don't just think you can move straight out of survival into revive mode. But I want to encourage you to really embrace the first stage, which is ambition. If you're ambitious, you're setting some really big growth goals for yourself that might not have been possible in our old normal. Because your companies and your work are rapidly changing, that means so can you. And you can offer skills that might not have been embraced before. You can make proactive suggestions about how to best implement some new policies or procedures. And I'd like for you to do one intellectual exercise that might prepare you to be bold enough to share your ambitions with your managers and your teammates. I've shared this in some other talks before, but I really believe in this exercise. When I was pondering leaving Google after 12 years, and it was my home and my family and my safety zone, and a place that I really felt productive and valued, it was really hard for me to imagine leaving. But I came to the decision when I did this thought exercise, and I did this several times over my career. I would first write down in column A. Now, this is how my brain works. You might do a vision board, a mood board version of this. It can come in whatever form, but I think in data and spreadsheets. So I set up a spreadsheet for myself. And in column A, I wrote down literally everything I do in a day. Every possible responsibility I had, from the mundane to the exciting. And that was column A. Column B, I would move over only those things that excited me. That when that was on my task list for the day, I woke up, sprang out of bed with an extra spring in my step, and was excited for what I was going to accomplish that day. And then I would stare at column B for a while. Of those tasks that excited me, how can I turn those into a challenge? How can I take those to a new level and learn a new skill and gain a new skill for what I want to be and what I want to learn and contribute going forward? And then I would ask for promotions. I would go to my managers at Amazon, or my early years at Google on the product team, or then when I was working for the CEO at Google, I would say, here's what I want to grow. Here's how I want to accomplish it. I'd love to volunteer for this cross-functional project with the policy team or with the communications team so that I can learn this skill and best deliver my job in this new way at this higher level. And so you get their buy-in because they see the vision for how, when you gain that skill and that experience, their lives become easier, their jobs are more successful. So that's how you get the buy-in. So I challenge you to do that little thought exercise of thinking, okay, I need to pivot, I need to future-proof my skills. You might have identified some areas of weakness. So go ambitiously to them and say, here's what I'm going to seek out, especially in this time of pivoting, and here's how it's going to benefit you, our team, and the whole company. And what I really want you to do when you do this is the KonMari effect. I think you're probably familiar with this from The Magical Art of Tidying Up, which is a very popular book now about decluttering your lives and removing things that you no longer need anymore, thanking them for what they've contributed and letting them go. We're going to have to do this in our career right now. We're going to have to mourn some things that were our safety blankets and realize that we've moved on. And I want you to keep and invite in only those things that bring you joy. What are the tasks you love the most? What are the challenges you want to have? For me, I really find joy in doing really hard things. I think that's just a quirk of my personality. I don't know, but I don't think I'm alone in that. I think you too enjoy like doing something really hard and accomplishing it. So set some big tasks. But as you look at that column C of your growth areas, look for opportunities to build joy and bring more of that into your life. If you're working for a team that doesn't bring you joy, or a manager who doesn't help you thrive, consider that when more work opportunities are coming, or maybe when you're in a pivot moment now and you're in the situation where you need to look for new opportunities, have it with a lens of what's going to bring you the most growth and joy. The second phase of the revival phase is in building trust. I think this is best built through active communication. We do this by what I like to call out-caring everyone. This is not outworking everyone, you're out-caring. You're doing this through little random acts of kindness throughout the day, reaching out and seeing how someone's actually feeling, investigating how a project is actually going and is affecting your team. And I love the Maya Angelou quote that says, people might forget what you did, or people can forget what you say, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. Now is the time. This is a culture defining moment for you and for your team. So be the one who outcares everyone and build trust through that regular communication. I've been so touched by the people in my life who've reached out to me knowing that I'm separated from my family in Spain, that my family here in Seattle are also in a hotbed of this virus, and who really proactively came to me and sought out a connection with me. I will never forget that. The third and final stage of this revive stage of our journey is rebound. So this for me is really actually a cycle. This goes from readiness, what you're preparing right now, the skills you need to future-proof your career, your response to crisis. Are you the reliable one that people can come to create some calm amid the chaos, and then repeat. And this rebounding stage, I'm telling you, this crisis won't be your last. This is my third economic crisis, but I have had many personal crises also. I've changed countries, I've changed jobs, I've changed companies, I've been divorced, I've been married, and these skills are going to be needed again in your life. So don't just hunker down like a turtle or an ostrich with your head in the sand. Really just embrace it and stretch into this goal. I want you to be able to be adaptive and to predict what you're going to need to not only survive this crisis, but to come out on the other side stronger, to recognize the new realities of your company or your industry. And what I like to, this again, my data nerd, I like to operationalize my dreams. My job description I've given myself in my new company is that I reverse engineer moonshots. I want you to do that for yourself. Think of those dream goals, those stretch goals that you have, and really reverse engineer that into something that brings you joy and stretches you into a future-proof career that will make you even more essential going forward. So the third step is then, oh, I can't wait for the day when we're thriving again, huh? And the secret is, I don't have any bullet points for this thrive stage, because really thriving is a rinse and repeat of everything we've just discussed. Thriving is really about embracing the cycle of life. I once in my career, as I was preparing to leave Google, I sold everything I owned. I packed up 2 suitcases, 3 duffel bags, and moved to Europe. That's all I had to my name. I donated everything else, got rid of my house and my car and my furniture and my possessions that I held so dearly, and really just reinvented myself from the ground up. Now, you don't need to do that, but take it from me, that's a gut-wrenching thing, and I think we're going through that kind of globally in this pandemic. It's one of the most liberating and beautiful things I've been through. There is a silver lining to this crisis. You're getting stronger than you ever could have become without this struggle, and you're going to be better for it. The last thing I want to leave you with as I wrap up my comments and get really ready and excited for your questions is I want to leave you with a quote from the Dalai Lama that was published in Time magazine last week that really struck me. And the Dalai Lama said this. He said, "The outbreak of this terrible coronavirus has shown us that what happens to one person can soon affect every other being. But it also reminds us that a compassionate or constructive act has the potential to help many." So just as like a sneeze or an exposure can have a devastating negative consequence, so can you, just being you, in your family, in your team, in your work, in your community. You can have that ripple effect of positivity and to contribute something truly special. And I know we'll come out on the other side. I know it's scary, and I'm sure we're going to repeat this survive, revive, thrive cycle many times before we find our new footing. But I hope he's given you a few steps to start that journey.
Thank you, Ann. That was amazing, as usual. I'm not surprised. All good stuff. We've got questions up here. Colleen's going to ask a question, but I have one that's related to the business continuity. You have always prepared for business continuity with your team, with Ken and Brian. Can you talk a little bit about, just really quickly, how you structured the 3 of you supporting Eric in your chief of staff role? And then the other question someone submitted was, how did you make your transition from being an executive assistant to chief of staff?
Yeah. So I started, my team with Jeff Bezos was also a team of 3. So in supporting my execs, I've always been a team of 3. So his team was structured where I had a manager, John Connors, who still supports Jeff to this day. He was our lead. I handled everything external. So if Jeff was outside the building, that was my job. And then someone else handled everything internal, which was just strategy meetings, etc. When I started with Eric Schmidt, his office was arranged almost exactly the same. When Eric transitioned from being CEO to chairman, my beautiful team here on the right, he let go of everyone who reported to him in the company except for me. He wanted to really reinvent himself, his responsibilities, and his contributions from the ground up. So he asked me that was how I transitioned into being chief of staff, because then I was tasked with hiring talent that would help him deliver new results. So as chief of staff, the difference to me is I then became the lead for the strategy, which was really around collaborating. I describe it as the head on the octopus. I became the head on the octopus, where the arms were maybe our policy leads, our comms department, country managers, and all of this. And I would gather the data from all these pieces, make sure they were working in coordination, and then make sure that Eric was always in the right place at the right time. So I was making recommendations on strategic uses of his time, what heads of state he needed to meet with, what policy decisions needed to be addressed, etc. So I designed a team very differently than those I had been on before. So instead of structuring it with me as a lead and hiring junior people to just do what I tell them to, I wanted to hire people who would push me, who would make me my best self. I wanted to hire people who I considered better than me, because I knew that would bring my A game. If I woke up every day trying not to disappoint them and not be the weakest link, we would innovate in the way that Eric needed to be effective. So Kim, here in the red dress on the right in our group photo, she had been assistant to our founders, Larry and Sergey, in the very, very beginning of the company. So I knew that she knew all the players. She already had relationships of trust within the company. And most important, she knew how to manage chaos, because Google had been extremely chaotic back then. And she became my right-hand woman. We eventually then brought on Brian, because one, I had an eye for diversity and I was very determined to bring a man on our team. And he had been chief of, I can't remember if his title was chief of staff. I think he was just executive assistant to a hedge fund CEO. And he had followed that CEO from New York to London to Hong Kong. And I hired him. Literally, we met on video conference. We'd never seen each other face to face, and he joined my team in Google. And what I did with Kim and Brian, because they were so accomplished, so skilled, and brought complementary talents that made up for some of my weaknesses, I changed our model so that it was very egalitarian. While I was still their boss and I did their performance evaluations, and if there was a mistake, it was on me, I created a system where we would rotate every week, so that everyone was learning new things, keeping their skills fresh, and not just getting niche siloed areas of expertise. So anything happening in that week, whether it was writing a major keynote speech, maybe a commencement address, or doing a policy meeting with a head of state, or if we were doing maybe a large product announcement or a mergers and acquisitions meeting, whatever fell on your week was within your area of responsibility. And that kept all of us fresh. And we did heavy peer review. I hired these people because they were excellent autonomous workers. They dealt very well in situations of ambiguity and would create systems out of chaos. And third, they were highly collaborative. We never competed with each other. We wanted more than anything for each other to be our best selves. This model wouldn't have worked in with people who wanted to compete or felt threatened by someone else's success. It would have broken. But because we were so collaboratively team-minded, we did things that I never would have dreamed we could have accomplished. In fact, I remember Eric saying in a board meeting that the team I had created was embarrassingly good. It literally embarrassed him in front of his peers because his team was at such a high level. And that's not me. That's because I hired people who were better than me, honestly. Did that answer the question all right, Vickie?
Yeah. Yes. And then how did you get from, if someone wanted to get to the chief of staff role, as far as their moonshot goal, what's the step? Or what are the steps for that?
Yeah, first off, you should say it out loud. So you should say it out loud of like, here's my ambition. I really want to be a chief of staff. These are the skills that I want to develop to get there. Here's where I think you should be really honest and be like, here's my weaknesses. And most of it's probably just lack of exposure. If you want to be chief of staff, when I first, let me give you an example of exactly what I did. When I first was recruited into Eric's team, he came to me. I had been working for Marissa and was very happy in that role, but he came to me because of my past experience with Jeff Bezos, and because of some of my skill sets were complementary to something was missing in his team. I lost my train of thought. The first point I was going to make. Oh yeah, he really needed somebody who could push him to deliver more as CEO. I didn't know at the time that he was in his last years of being CEO and had an eye towards becoming chairman and what his contributions would be outside of just core central growth strategy. So I set a goal for myself when I first joined his office of getting all of the senior vice presidents and the board members to know my name and trust me. So that was my goal. So the way I accomplished that was I actually volunteered for a very thankless task. Every Monday, Eric had a senior strategy meeting, and each of the SVPs had to submit their part of that meeting by Friday, the Friday before. Nobody ever had that done on time because the data takes a while to put together. And so I volunteered to work on that. One, so that the SVPs would be talking to me every week, and two, because I could be helpful. I helped them organize their data, put it together, I saved them time. I built up my know, like, and trust factor, which we all know is the secret sauce. And so through doing that thankless task that required me to work every single weekend, I not only accomplished my goal of having them know my name and trust me and see that I was a smart person who could contribute at their intellectual equal level, but the unintended thing, which I wish I'd been clever enough to anticipate but hadn't, was I now knew all of the priorities in the company. I knew which teams were performing well, which were struggling, where we were investing our time and resources, where we were eyeing the growth. So I understood the strategy of the company inside out in a way that I wouldn't have otherwise. And that is an essential part of becoming a chief of staff. You really need to understand what they're trying to accomplish, what success looks like. And it goes back to you probably know this quote from the famous hockey player, Wayne Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky said he was the best player of all time because he always skated to where the puck was going to be, not where it was. And being a chief of staff is being able to do that. You need to be ahead of it. You need to know where they want to be 3, 5, 10 years from now in order to help them do their job. If you don't have that core business understanding or the confidence to critique an idea or speak truth to power, those are some areas I would focus on working on right now. So when you say out loud to them, I want to become chief of staff, here's what I'm missing. I need you to share this critical data with me. I want to sit in on your strategy meetings. I want to own some of the project management, cross-functional things you have going on. Volunteer for specific things that would allow you to learn those skills to be able to contribute at that level.
Perfect. Couldn't have scripted it better myself, Ann. Colleen, do you have a question from the queue?
I do. Before the virus, I was thinking about going for a promotion, and now I have no idea how to proceed. Do you have any advice?
I do. I would do what I just outlined for being chief of staff. I actually think now is the time to be bold. Don't shy away. Don't be like, oh, now's not the time to bother them. No way. What they need right now more than anything is to see who their self-starters are, see who's going to be ambitious. Actually, here's what you should remember. Jeff Bezos, he had one rule of hiring, and his rule for hiring was you need to hire people that you want to hold back, not push forward. Right now, your company, your manager, your executive does not have the brain power to think about how to best utilize you. So be bold, be ambitious, volunteer for the crazy stuff you've always wanted to try, especially the things that you don't think you're going to do perfectly the first time, because now it's all hands on deck. Nobody's expecting perfect performance, and you're going to learn a lot. So I would say be bold, make your ambitions known. First, do that thought exercise of what you want to learn. Look for opportunities where you could grow those skills and volunteer to jump in as needed and be an extra set of hands to learn that. And then tell them, I'm doing this with an eye of growing into performing at this level and really getting that. So I actually think now is a great time. Now might not be the time to ask for the money, but the responsibility, yes. And then the reward will follow, in my experience.
And I have another question. I think this will be the last question because we'll bring Bonnie back up. This attendee says, I love that you shared that it's okay not to be a superhero in the productivity arena. Any thoughts about how our leaders feel about this? Do you think they're expecting and accepting more productivity right now or less? I think many of us would love to know what they're thinking, not only regarding this question, but since you're working with a lot of CEOs, what should assistants know about what's going on in their mindset, what they need to do?
Yeah, I would go back to point number 1 in survive mode, which is clarify. I would just be super honest of like, hey, I think some of these tasks that used to be like top deliverables are no longer applicable, or hey, I just can't. With my 2 sets of twins under the age of 5, I cannot do X, Y, and Z, like we got to pick one. I would be really real with what you can contribute right now. So get clarity on the one deliverable they need from you this week, the one deliverable they need this month, and then I would ask them straight out, like, what can I do that you're struggling with? What can I team up with you? Because I'm telling you, I spend all day, every day in a room with CEOs who are struggling. And these are amazing CEOs. These are not like subpar. I chose them as clients because what they're doing is spectacular, and I believe in them personally as a leader. And even as handpicked as that group is, they are all having a hard time. So guaranteed, no matter who your manager or CEO is, they're struggling. And they want to know from you what's working, what are they doing that's really helping you, what's effective, and what do you need more, or what do you see their team needing more, and have those really honest, clarifying conversations with them. I think they welcome the feedback. If I can tell you a secret, it's that they feel very lonely at the top. They feel like they're in a spotlight and they have to act like they have all the answers. And of course they don't, because nobody does. So give them an opportunity to feel less lonely, to feel like you're in this together and that you're truly in a partnership. I love that Google calls their administrative professionals executive business partners. Wear that hat, own that. They are desperate for that kind of partnership right now. If you can offer that to them and give them a place where they feel less lonely and they have a safe space to bounce their ideas and to also be vulnerable and have a hard day, the two of you together are going to be so much stronger than ever, because everyone's craving that. Everyone's craving the honesty, the reality. They don't want to have to pretend like they have it all together and they have all the answers. They're going to have to be okay with trying to pivot together.
I love that. Thanks for that insight, because you're talking to them every single day, and a lot of assistants are wondering, like, I haven't heard from my executive at all, so what's happening?
Probably because they don't know what to say.
They don't know what to say. Yeah, it's all new for everybody. That's the thing. And I want to make one point. Okay, we can bring Bonnie up here, and when you talk about survive and revive stages, when I went through let me bring my camera back up. This resonates with me because, obviously with my cancer battle, I was in survival mode, but no one prepared me for the next phase, which was the recovery or revive mode. And I have a feeling we're all cutting each other some slack here because we're all experiencing this. And then once we're back into the new normal, that there's going to be a really painful phase, which is the revive. So I'm glad you have these steps for us, and I'm going to really look at it and wish I would have, because it took me 2 years to recover and I wasn't prepared for that. So on the screen, you have a worksheet. This is, I have the actual worksheet showing here. So let me just show everybody what they will get, if I can get this up. Anyway.
Which Vickie was showing, Ann Hyatt.co.
Yeah.
You'll see this 15, there's a banner ad at the top. So it's really easy to find. And you just click on that, and then Vickie has an example here of a 15-page worksheet that has it outlines the principles we've talked about today, but it also will show you, it'll ask you questions and it'll give you some action items. If one of those buckets, and like I said, just pick your one, if one of those really resonated, the stage you're on right now, it'll give you 2 or 3 action items today so that you can take some control and put yourself back in the driver's seat. The most effective way to fight depression and feelings of helplessness and overwhelm is to feel back in control. So even if they're small things, there's a couple of things you can do today in that worksheet that will help you feel like you're back in the driver's seat of your own life.
Awesome. And they can share that with other people, yeah? So I just go to the website, and there's a download link. Can you talk a little bit about, because this would be your 3rd time speaking at South by, that was canceled in March here in Austin. So this is your talk that you're doing, but you're delivering in a virtual session. Can you talk about who the audience is and what's about the session?
Thanks, Vickie. Yeah, I was really excited about this talk and so crushed when South by Southwest got canceled. So if you're not familiar with the conference, it's around technology, entertainment, and design, which I just described TED, but it's really around how cross-disciplinary things come together. So really the common theme is innovation. So I speak within the tech sector, and my talk was originally titled Innovation While in the Spotlight. And the target audience for that was CEOs. But now I've done a COVID edition of that talk, and I've redefined it to really, it's a phrase I actually stole from Adam Grant, who I mentioned earlier, where we're moving from a period of post-traumatic stress into hopefully post-traumatic growth. And I wrote this talk with an eye to what we're experiencing right now and how we can pivot. And it gives much more details. Now, this talk, yes, was written with executives in mind, but I find it applicable to anyone who is needing to hit the reset button, create your own thinking retreat, your own mini business school while we have the time to kind of be really thoughtful about our future, and have some actionable things that you can do to really be purposeful in your life and to bring more joy. So it's really kind of an extension of the basic principles we built on today with some harder hitting things. So I think this would be a great thing to recommend to your executives and for you to join as a continuation of this conversation. I hope I wrote it within a mind of anyone from university student up through Fortune 500 CEO will find something that will help them regain some sense of control and hit their reset button. So I hope you'll join me for that. It's next Wednesday at the same time at 12 p.m. Eastern.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so Bonnie, do you have anything to ask Ann before you kick off your portion?
Well, Ann, your talk was amazing. Thank you so much. You've hit on so many of the issues that our listeners have been raising, starting with the whole anxiety thing and then how to think about the insecurity of the job situation. One last thought before I know you're going to hang in there for the rest of the session, which is awesome because we've got a very big announcement at the end of the webinar as well, which you're going to help us with. And very quickly, you've got a book coming out, right? When is it coming out?
Oh, thank you. I don't know the release date yet, but I just turned it into my editor. So I'm writing a book with HarperCollins. The working title, which I'm sure will change, but the working title right now is Say Your Name. And I wrote this from my experience as an EA, starting as the junior most person in the entire company at Amazon, rising up to become chief of staff at one of the most powerful companies in the world at Google for 12 years, and then going on now to coach global CEOs across 4 different continents of all growth stages and industries. Wow. And it's about that journey, about how you can be very purposeful in making the most out of seemingly limited opportunities. It's about building your own doorway, making something out of seemingly nothing. I took a job that was pretty low rung, low respect, and created my dream career out of it. And that's not because I'm exceptionally bright or talented. The best part of it is I'm not exceptional in those ways. I'm exceptional in the purposeful steps that I took to grow from one step to the other. And that is replicable by anyone at any stage. If you're in university coming out, graduating right now with in this horrible economy, I got you. I did the same. I graduated in 2002, same situation. And so, or if you're maybe pivoting or wanting to get a promotion for the first time, or if you're wanting to be recognized and get a senior position, or if you are a founder and starting a company and really wanting to establish your authority and gain your confidence, build the mentors that you need to be successful, that's what Say Your Name's about. So it's due to my publishers in July, and so that means it usually comes out a year or so after that. So we're looking at probably a year and a half.
Wow, that's exciting. Thank you so much for this. This has been amazing. Really, thank you.
Okay, we'll be back on with
we'll see you in a little bit.
Yes. Okay, Bon, I'm going to mute and turn off my camera, and you are good to go.
Okay. So for the next couple of minutes, I just want to talk about 2 burning issues that have emerged as major in this last 2 weeks since we last were on this webinar. And the first one was, and if you have any comments about this, put it in the chat box, and we will get to those if we can today, but if not, in the follow-up email when you get the replay, you will read the responses. The first question is about APW. This is Administrative Professionals Week, and what has come in was, given the virus, has there been recognition by your executive, by your company, by HR of this occasion? And in many cases, what I've come to know is that assistants managed to have some kind of celebration. I was on a webinar with a group out of Houston, Mary Alanis, who's an amazing executive assistant down there. She organized a Zoom call with a group of assistants to celebrate the week. I have to admit, though, I was troubled by the assistants who said, no, nothing happened. And actually, pre-virus, the date wasn't acknowledged either. April is considered Administrative Professionals Month. That 3rd week of April is considered Administrative Professionals Week. One of my colleagues said recently that, you know what, assistants of the world have a PR problem. That if the occasion has not been marked, it's a pretty natural feeling to have a feeling of disrespect, that the role in general, many assistants feel that the role is not respected generally around the world. And I'm of a mind that we as assistants need to participate in the improvement of the perception of this role. I think it's completely legitimate to put on the master calendar what Administrative Professionals Week is. just like you might put your birthday and your executives' birthdays on the master calendar if that gets celebrated. But that we can make it known that this is worthy of celebration and of acknowledgement, and it is a representation of respect. So I wonder, Colleen, if there's any input on that issue about APW and respect and appreciation and value in the chat box. Might there be?
Yes, it looks like it's about an even split between yes, they got recognition, and no, there was no recognition, but several people mentioned it wasn't a company recognition, but something more personal from a supervisor or a team.
Right. I think moving forward in these next months that there is going to be a heightened awareness of this role and a rethinking, a fresh look, if you will, at this role. So thanks, Colleen, for that. My hope is that it will improve and that we can participate in that. The second question, Vic, did you have something to say about that?
I did. I wonder if there's a way, if your company did do something larger than just a one-on-one appreciation, maybe post in the Q&A panel what your team did or company did, because it looks like some folks are going, well, I got one-on-one recognition, but there wasn't this team-wide or organization-wide recognition. So maybe people are looking for ideas. So if you have ideas, and then we'll make sure it's part of the document, our master document. Okay, that's it.
Yeah. You know, this role is misunderstood in many companies, that it's all over the place. And that has added to the confusion and the ambiguity about, exactly what does an executive assistant do, which leads to the second question, which is how can assistants have a seat at the table for important decisions that are being made? If you have comments on this, please add them to the chat box. I just want to share with you that you've got to know that right this minute, as Ann was alluding to, that there are a lot of decisions and conversations happening right now about what these next weeks and the next months are going to look like. There's a lot of uncertainty. So, what is it going to look like when we go back to the office? What is needed, et cetera? You have an opportunity to have your voice heard. If you want to put your ideas in writing, talk about them as a group first, about what is it that you see? What kind of problems do you anticipate? These questions are coming up a lot. Like, are we going back? When are we going back? How is that going to look? We're going to split schedules, et cetera. The other thing that I see related to the first question is the idea that, and I'd love to hear from anybody in HR on this, HR is going to be tasked with a lot of revamping as we go back into the offices, and they're going to be swamped. I really believe that now is the time to revise your job description to reflect what you're actually doing in this new situation, and maybe even propose a new title that's more reflective of what you're actually doing. And as Ann said, now is the time to be bold. This is not the time to ask for more money, though, but it is the time to plan for it as we look ahead. And the whole thing that is going to be, I think, put under a spotlight. And it could be a golden opportunity to really manifest the things that you're interested in doing. If you are interested in creating an onboarding system or involved in the revision of the disaster plan, whatever it is. Colleen, any comments that are jumping out at you?
We have a couple of suggestions specific to the current situation. You can volunteer to help with the transition back into the office and with communications, which are two big things that are going to be happening. And then I have a couple of people talking about once you get the seat at the table, Someone said they're scared of getting the seat because then if they get there and they don't have answers to questions, they'll feel like they didn't deserve the seat.
That's interesting. It does make sense. So then your attitude needs to be you're there to learn and to absorb and to read what your executive is reading and to just get up to speed on what the thinking is. You can ask to be in on meetings if you have time on your hands, that kind of thing. I can understand that. I think it's time to be bold, though, and to take a shot. And I suspect, really, that you know more than you think you know. I really do believe that's true. I urge you to not stay quiet. This is the time to reveal all the fabulous things that you do know, because you know quite a lot, the assistants of the world. Vickie, do you have anything to add? And I'm ready to turn it over to you. You're muted. Can't hear you.
Okay, thanks. Unmute. I'm sure everyone's done that forever. I want to jump into the technology piece because we have 8 minutes. I want to do 4 minutes in tech. Okay, cool. Thank you. So I always want to know what technology you guys are using. So during registration, you generously offered this information that for those of you, all of you that are working from home, you are using a company laptop. 78% of you or 77% using a company laptop, and then 9% of you that work for a company are using a personal laptop, and the rest of you are using personal. I think another scenario might be a combination of those technologies. And then the virtual platform, if you're using Office 365, G Suite, iCloud, other, I have a feeling means you're using a combination of them. So this is interesting. So I'm going to share with you really just digital skills for working with virtual teams. And then a lot of you are asking, okay, I've got some downtime, or how do I prepare for the future? What skills do I need? So I'm going to quickly go through these, regardless of what platform you're using. And I really think as far as communicating, the goal is to be able to communicate from any device, so that if you are working at your laptop, wherever it is on the kitchen table, and then you're done for the day and you want to then go to the couch with a glass of coffee or water or wine, you could still communicate on your mobile device or your tablet or whatever. The other thing is if or when something happens to your computer, if you spill coffee on it, if it dies, there's no IT department to reissue a laptop. So it's really important for us to be able to work across devices. From a communication standpoint, we have to minimize email. I think when this first happened, everyone just started sending email because we no longer were using our phones. So use email for more, these are just suggestions for more formal communication for clients, partners, if you're going to copy or CC, BCC, and then try to use chat, whatever platform you're using. If you're using Google or Teams, use chat for one-on-one discussions. So Colleen and I never email each other unless I'm copied on something or I copy her on something. Otherwise, everything is through chat. And then that chat platform which is Teams, is on my phone and on every single device. Then you can use @ mentions in your chat platform and Teams. You can also promote to a call, to a screen share. Bonnie can do a screen share from her computer, and I can actually see it on my phone because I'm using Teams. And then you can obviously video calls and then virtual team meetings. What I would do at the beginning of a virtual team meeting, you saw me struggle because I was muted. I don't know the keyboard shortcut to unmute and go to webinar, but it would be, do you remember the time when people would say at the beginning of a presentation, they would say, and then this would be a good time for you to turn off your cell phone, silence your cell phones. Why not start a trend where at the beginning of a virtual meeting, somebody just says, as a reminder, the toggle to mute is Control M or Command M, or in Teams it's Control Shift M or Command Shift M as a mute. So be that person at the beginning of the meeting to remind people. And I would continue reminding people so that they just have the keyboard shortcut. So those are some suggestions for you. The other thing is you have to move your documents off of your local computer. So if you have documents on desktop, My Documents, U Drive, P Drive, or whatever, in order to have that business continuity, even if a device fails, you must be able to access your assets on any device. In order to do it, has to be in the cloud. So I'm just showing you, this is my PC. This is my OneDrive on PC, and then my OneDrive on my Mac. And then the next screen, this is my OneDrive. If I go to office.com and click on OneDrive, this is my OneDrive. It matches the OneDrive I see on my screen. And then I could see my recents down there, my shared files, and any libraries that I have on my team environment. So make sure, I would say the number one homework assignment, get those local files off of your desktop and My Documents. Do that now, because when your computer crashes, you'll be so grateful that you did. The other, just a quick thing about some ideas to add value right now. So if you do have some downtime, Office 365 has an area, it's called Profiles. There's a little avatar, there's a little avatar on the top right-hand corner of office.com. When you click on that, you can add your expertise and any projects that you're working on. Fill that out, because in the search field in office.com, if someone types a certain project name or a certain set of skills, your profile will pop up. So it's a great way to get have visibility within the organization and get tagged for joining other teams and projects. I'd highly recommend doing 30-minute, I think you're all doing this right now. You're doing happy hours and 30-minute lunch and learns. Each of you demonstrate some sort of expertise, some sort of skill. If you learn something in any of our classes, just do a 5-minute presentation. Now's the time to develop the business continuity guidelines, virtual etiquette, digital etiquette. If there's some things that frustrate you during your virtual meetings, like, man, I wish everyone would mute all, then put something in place, put a document in place on what are the guidelines for all of us. And you guys start that and then submit that for your organization to distribute. This is the best time to praise colleagues. It's because we're not in the same room anymore. I would start using technology just to praise someone once a day, once a week. Think about someone that you're really grateful for and make it visible to other people what they've done for you and for the organization. If you're interested in getting certified in Microsoft Office, I have a webinar coming up on May 12th. Go to my calendar and you can register for that webinar to see what the newest certification levels are for Office 365 in 2019. And then you can actually lead a team to become certified or tech savvy. In fact, I have a document that I will send you guys. I did this, and I remember finishing this document when I was in South Africa or in Cape Town with Ann. I created a core skills document on what it means to be tech savvy and specialty skills, and each one of these are defined. So go through it yourself, go through it with your executive, and determine what your tech savvy goals are for the year, and then we can help you pursue those goals, whether it's with me and Red Cape or other technology trainers. Start reviewing this, make this kind of your map. So those are some ideas. I am going to, wrong presentation. I want to bring Bonnie back up, and we are going to make an announcement. 12:30 already. We're going to make an announcement. Yeah. Yep. There we go. Okay. Bonnie, you want to finish this, and then we'll make the announcement?
Okay, so as we are ending this, we have a very exciting announcement to make. But before we tell you who our next guest is going to be on May 7th, I want to invite all of you to please link in with us that these webinars are a work in progress, and it's a conversation. It's a global conversation. I want to thank all of you for joining us today. We know that there is high unemployment in the world. Please use the chat box and our LinkedIn profiles and messaging to share information about what companies have job openings, what city, and we will share that information because we want anybody who wants a job to have one. You'll be receiving the replay. And Vickie and I certainly want, boy, oh boy, if you want technology training, Vickie has so many solutions for you. We can both go into your companies virtually, which we would love to do to support you further in your goals. So with that, let us bring back Ann. Ann, you're going to help us do this. We are so excited. Vickie, you want to handle this part?
Yes. All right.
Yes.
Our guest for Thursday, May 7th. Dun, da, da, da. Okay. Oh,
drum roll,
okay,
please.
Okay. Here we go.
Is our friends, all of our mutual friends, Libby Moore.
Yep. Former chief of staff to Oprah Winfrey. And there's the four of us together.
I think this is going to be amazing. I'm thrilled that that Libby is next. I think she's a natural next step in this progression. And if I know anyone who can center us for what will give us the best head start in this crisis, it is Libby. She gets straight to the heart at exactly what we need, centers us, puts us in our best mindset. So I will definitely be tuning in. I'm really excited about that.
Great. So please, everyone on the call, share this information with your colleagues and friends and family. It's just as Ann, you were brilliant today, and in her own way, Libby will be as well. So our goal is to bring you the finest minds we can, and we see this as like this global think tank. We're going to end today. Ann, hang in there with us. I want to end on this idea, which you shared in part, which is that unexpected kindness is the most powerful, least costly, and most underrated agent of human change. We are in such an extreme situation. I would urge each and every one of us to choose kindness when we can. For strangers, you see a post online, someone looking for new work. If you think you can help, let us do that. Maya Angelou, Ann, it's interesting, I almost put the Maya Angelou quote right here, but I chose this one instead, so we got the best of both of them. The idea that people will remember, right? We remember when people don't have our backs, and we certainly remember when they do. I think we've just seen the tip of the iceberg. In these next weeks and months, there's going to be a lot revealed to us as a profession. And one of the strongest messages I have for each of you is to let us choose always to do this with each other, to choose to support each other generously and without keeping score, and to decide that we are going to collaborate, cooperate, and support. That's what I have to say. And I think
we're fun.
Vickie, what are your final thoughts?
Well, I was going to say, someone's asking what the Dalai Lama quote was. Ann, do you want to share that again? Do you remember that?
Yeah. It was in Time Magazine. It's actually linked. If you download the worksheet from today's talk, it's linked at the bottom of that article. But it's a Time Magazine from last week where the Dalai Lama said, "The outbreak of this terrible coronavirus has shown us that what happens to one person can soon affect every other being. But it also reminds us that a compassionate or constructive act has the potential to help many."
Love that. And it's annhyatt.co.
Yep.
To grab that.
Yeah. So it's be kind and be courageous. This is the time for boldness. This is the time to speak up. Vickie and I thank you for being here with us. Right, Vic?
Yes. Thanks, Ann, so much. It was good to see you. I'm glad Tony was on the call. I hope he's still on. Hi, Tony.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, hi, Tony.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thanks, Fawn, for having this amazing idea to get together. And we'll see each other in the next 2 weeks with Libby Moore.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
With Libby Moore.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Time.
Be well.
Thank you. Stay safe. Be well.
Bye, guys. Thanks. This concludes today's session. You may now disconnect from the call. Bye.
Bye.